For the next two videos, we're going to take a look at standard BF.4a, B, and C. They're all related to each other because they're all talking about inverse functions. So in these three standards, we are finding an inverse function. We are understanding the inverse relationship between exponential and logarithmic, quadratic and square root, and linear to linear functions. And we need to be able to use this relationship to solve problems using tables, graphs, and equations. The standard BF.4b is determining if an inverse function exists by analyzing tables, graphs, and equations. And BF.4c is if an inverse function exists for a linear, quadratic, and or exponential function f, represent the inverse function f of -1 with a table, graph, or equation, and use it to solve problems in terms of a context. So notice three big standards cover inverse functions, so there's lots to talk about with these. So I'm going to divide these problems into two videos, 4 questions per video. So this one is number 1. The exponential function f of x passes through the point 1, 7. Which choice could be the equation f to the -1 of x? So a big concept with inverse functions is to switch the x and the y. So if we switch x and y for the inverse, we're looking for which one of these functions will contain the inverse point, which is 7, 1. And so in order to figure that out, I am going to use Desmos to just type in these answer choices and figure out which one would make sense. So we just got to be careful typing all the details in. So answer choice A says 2 log base 3. So I need to go down to the log that has the little base option, and then x plus 2. And then I need to pull up a table. I can look at the graph as well, but a table is definitely very helpful. So 7, 1, I type in 7 and I get 4. So that means A is not quite right. All right, so let's type in answer choice B. I noticed that B is very similar to A. It's just got a 1/2 in the front. So I'm going to try to edit what I've got and do 1 divided by 2. And let's take out that 2. And then pull up a table. And I'm going to type in 7. And this time I do get 1. So answer choice B should be correct. And then if I tried C and D, they will not be correct. So let's look at question number 2. The table shows function g of x. And it wants to know what is the value of g to the -1 of 2. So basically what's the inverse for x equals 2? So first we just need to switch x and y for this table. If you hear any snoring, that is my dog trying to get my attention right now. So I apologize for any snoring noises, but I'm going to continue my video. All right, so I've set up my table. I'm going to switch x and y. So I notice I have 0, 0, so that stays the same. I have 1, 2, so I'm going to put 2, 1. I have 2, 8, so I'm going to put 8, 2. And I have 3, 18, so I'm going to put 18, 3. So what I need to find is the inverse value that goes with x equals 2. So now I can quickly see that 2 for x gives me a value of 1. And so that would be C. So you have to switch x and y because that finds the inverse of g of x. And then when you look for 2, it goes with 1. Simple as that. Number 3 says this function f of x, which is f of x equals x squared minus 6x plus 13 for x is greater than or equal to 3. And then it says what is the inverse function and its domain. So with these graphs that are quadratic, it is easiest to graph this, or not graph it necessarily, but get a table of values, I should say. You can also graph it, but really the table of values is what's going to help the most. So I'm going to type this in and bring up my table of values for x is greater than or equal to 3. So let's see, I'm going to try to edit. I guess it doesn't really need to be all that difficult. So let's just bring up some values that are greater than or equal to 3. And let's write down the table of values. So for this function, for x is greater than or equal to 3, I have 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 8, and let's write one more, 6, 13. So the inverse of that function, so that was f of x, the inverse, let me use a different color, is going to look just switched with those values of x and y. So it's going to look like 4, 3, 5, 4, 8, 5, and 13 will go with 6. So let's use the options they've given us, because we only have 4. One of them should work out just fine. And just carefully type it in. So negative square root x minus 4 plus 3. And then we pull up the table, and then let's check 4, and we see 3. And then 5 goes with 2, not 4. So A is not going to be right. So let's try answer choice B. We have negative square root of x minus 4 plus 3 for the values of x that are greater than or equal to 4. So let's see. And this table starts with 4, which does make more sense. So let's see. 4, 3, 5 goes with 2. So that is still not going to work out, which is what I was thinking, because those are the same function. Now let's just try the positive square root of x minus 4 plus 3, and then pull up the table. And notice it does say for values of x that are greater than or equal to 3. So starting with 3, it says undefined. So that's not going to be right. So it should be D, which is the same function as answer choice C. So I don't need to change what I typed. But notice when I start with the 4 and not the 3, it starts to make plenty of sense. So I have 4, 3, 5, 4, 8 goes with 5, and 13 goes with 6. So D is definitely the best answer. All right, the last one for this video is which table shows values for the inverse of h of x, where h of x equals the cube root of x over 2. So we need to type this in, find the table, and then find which one is switched out of our answer choices. So let me see. We wrote that last one in red, so I'm going to write this one in green and just write a couple of values down. So let's type it in, clear out what we have. You can get the nth root, which is what we need this time, at the bottom of your list of things under the function menu. So go to functions, and at the very bottom middle, there's the option to do any root you want, which is very helpful. So we could type this in. So the cube root of x over 2. We just need our table, and let's just pick out some nice reasonable values like -2, -1, and 0, 0, and 2, 1. And then I just like to go to the bottom and hit enter till I find another good one, if it's possible. So let's see, 16, 2. All right, so that looks like enough to figure this out. So I need to find the table of values that is switched, the inverse of h of x. So h to the -1 of x should have the values that I just wrote down but switched. So -2, -1 is going to be -1, -2. So I see A has -1, -2, so that's still an option. And none of the others have that. But let's just make sure we're also good with the other points we wrote down. So 0, 0, A also has that point in the right order. And then we had 2, 1, so we need to have 1, 2, which is also there. And then 16, 2 is 2, 16. So A is definitely the right choice because it has all the X's and Y's switched. So that would be perfect. All right, so this is the first video of 2 videos again for standard BF.4a, B, and C.